Ducati Premiere. Their new models for 2024. We're standing out the front, waiting to get in.
So there's no Kawasaki?
No Kawasaki.
No, only Ducati.
Ducati.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Nothing like a good taste of Italian, mate.
What'd you think of the MotoGP on the weekend?
Oh, sensational, man. Talking about Ducatis, look at Marcel, he's back, isn't he? Hey? So enjoying the Ducati experience, mate. The Ducati launch.
You start a fire, Pugs.
Oh, that'll be for an electric vehicle.
Hey Pugs, you're used to the red carpet, aren't you?
I am, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Always.
A lot of red carpet here.
Everyone, man,
We've in fact got the full Ducati range here, which is a rare treat. My name's Nick Selleck, I'll be your host for the night, and I'm going to run you through these 4 exciting models up the front. My brain's loaded with stats and figures for you, so forgive me if I look at my phone tonight. So, we've got a few things we've got to get through. First of all, I do want to thank Pirelli, who is a key partner for Ducati, both here in Australia but also internationally, obviously. They're the tyre supplier for Ducati. Every bike you see here tonight is loaded with Pirelli tyres, and indeed, they're the F1 tyre supplier as well. They're all scraping around Melbourne just on the weekend. So big thanks to Pirelli for being a big partner for Ducati. They wouldn't be able to do what they do without those tyres on the bikes. To get you fired up, first of all, we've got a short little video we want to show you now of what these bikes do on track. Hopefully that's got you pumped up. Okay, I'd like to now introduce you to the Managing Director of Ducati Australia and New Zealand, Sergi Canovas. Thanks, Sergi.
Hello everybody, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so after this emotional and exciting video, I'm not so sure I will be at the same level, so I will try to get your attention here. First of all, thanks for coming here. Welcome to the Ducati Premiere 2024. That's the second event that we do after last week in Melbourne with a very successful launch. So we are here to celebrate, first of all, the results of Ducati in 2023 worldwide, and also to show you in advance the models that will arrive in 2024, and also update you on all the events that we are going to do in Australia and New Zealand during 2024. So the year has been amazing. Worldwide we have delivered more than 58,000 bikes around the world. And on top of that, we also had a very strong result financially, the best one ever, with a return on sales on 10.5%. So it means that the company is very strong financially, and therefore we are ready for new projects in the future, bring new bikes, and being in a very strong position in the market. But this very good result was also due to the fact of the amount of limited editions and special editions that we launched in 2023. Some of them were to celebrate special milestones in our history, like the 30th anniversary of the famous 916, and for that we launched the Panigale V4 SP2 916 anniversary that you see on my back, and also the Monster 30th anniversary. We also launched other bikes that brought us more into the luxury segment, which normally we do with our partners in the group, and they are more related into what is the luxury cars. We started with the Street Fighter Lamborghini, that was very successful, and this year for the first time we have done it with Bentley, with our Diavel Bentley. So this is inspired from the model of Bentley called Multistrada V4, which is an ultra limited version of Bentley with only 18 cars sold worldwide. But when we talk about Ducati, the first thing that we think is race, and it's in our DNA. And if we talk about Ducati also, we talk about Panigale. But one thing that we have done these years is to make sure that we provide to our Ducatisti any Ducati and any riding style, but always keeping, you know, this unmistakable character of Ducati. So some examples are the nakeds. So if you take our nakeds, you will find there a Monster, which turns 30 years this year or last year. But also for those who want a little bit more aggressive riding, we also have the Street Fighter in the engine V2 and V4. Now if we go to the extreme on how we can interpret any kind of riding in Ducati, we can talk about cruiser. You know, it doesn't seem that it's part of our DNA also, but when we talk about cruiser, you can find also bikes like Diavel, which is one of my favorite ones in terms of design, and the new Diavel V4. Also, if you look at the customers that maybe want something which is more self-expressing and more fun, you can also have the range of Scrambler, which are much more colorful and much more free to interpretation and transformation of the bike. But one segment which is very important for us, and we have been putting a lot of effort here, is the adventure. So it's a segment that we started with the Multistrada. We put a lot of effort there, and the results are there because it's currently the best-selling model or the best-selling family that we have worldwide. The Multistrada, which in Italian, if you translate it, means multi-roads. So it's the most versatile bike that you can find in the range of Ducati. You can go to Globetrotter and adventure, like the picture that you see in Kenya, but you can also go to the track with the next model that we will see when we build it here. And last year we consolidated our position in the adventure by launching the Desert X, which is a lighter and much more off-road oriented bike with a 21-inch wheel in front. And even further this year, we entered into the motocross. And we started very well on the Italian Championship a couple of weeks ago when we went to Mantova, and in our first race we won. Okay, so very exciting future for us in Australia especially. Talking about race, also 2023 has been a magical year for us on the racing world. We won almost everything that you could win. We won MotoGP rider, we won MotoGP constructor and manufacturer. We went to the World Superbike with our Panigale V4 and we won. And we even went with the World Super Sport with our Panigale V2 and we also won. So very, very interesting year for us. Now, thank you very much. Now when we come to 2024, we will have 4 models here that we're going to unveil. But one of them is going to have a new engine also, which is the Super Quattro Mono. Now the Super Quattro Mono is our first single-cylinder engine since a long time. We got the Super Mono in the past, and I know that among all the Ducatisti that they've been with us, and even journalists and passionate riders, they are very excited about this engine. Because, again, as Ducati, we are doing differently than the rest, and this is, again, the most powerful engine that you can find in this, in this segment. But when, sometimes when we talk about Ducati internally, we said that we are not only making bikes, we are more like an entertainment company in which we produce bikes to make sure that our riders are enjoying it. So one thing that we do a lot is to prepare activities to enjoy Ducati. And we do it in mainly 2 different ways. One is what we call the Academy, in which we put together trainings for our riders to learn, for example, how to go to the racetrack, or even to improve the riding skills. We have this year, for the first time, what we call the DRE, which is the Ducati Riding Experience track, and we're going to do it in Lombok, in Mandalika, in the MotoGP racetrack. And I know that some of you here are coming with me in June, so I'm very excited about that. We're going to bring like 35 Panigales on the track. We're going to bring our instructors from Italy. We're going to have Danilo Petrucci, we're going to have Chas Davies, and people can just do the normal training, or they can do one-on-one with them to improve the riding skills. So very exciting times with the DRE. But not only on the racetrack, now that we are in the adventure, we do the same thing. We do the DRE adventure in Australia, in almost all the states. And in this case, it's more about off-road. It's more about learning how to ride the bike on the adventure, and also how to know how to drive the bike and how to fix it and how to overcome all the problems that you can have when you go to adventure. So these are the kind of academy things that we do, but on the other side we also do rides which are not related to learning. So we have what we call the dream tours. Some of them are road, and we are planning to do one in Victoria by November, more or less. And for the first time also this year, we're going to launch the expeditions. That it is a more off-road riding with the Desert X and Multistrada. We're going to do it in New Zealand, which are the greatest countries in the world. In the South Island, to have very nice rides there off-road. And I can't forget what is the most important event for us as a Ducatisti, which is the World Ducati Week. So World Ducati Week happens every 2 years in Misano, in Italy, and it is the biggest gathering of Ducatisti that you can see anywhere. So we are talking about 90,000 Ducatisti during a weekend in Misano with all the activities and all Ducati. So we are ready to go there in July this year and enjoy with all of you there also. So this is what I wanted to say in this introduction. Just wanted to say thank you to all our Ducatisti that support us to be bigger and better every year. And from our side, we are obviously committed to be the most desirable motorcycle brand in the world, and I think that we are there already. But also when we talk about our mission, which is to enrich people's lives through amazing experiences delivered by amazing bikes, this is what we are doing here also. So I hope that you enjoy the night. I hope that you enjoy the new models, and please, Forza Ducati. Thank you very much.
Next along and sharing the engines is the Street Fighter range. So again, the V2 and V4 models. The Street Fighter is one of my favourites. It really sets an impressive look, especially the Street Fighter V4 with the aero wings that are sort of borrowed from the MotoGP bikes. And super lightweight. Without the fairings on there, the V2 model weighs in 178 kilograms. So pretty serious sort of sports bike, but still very lightweight. Next along, unfortunately we don't have one of them on display here tonight, is the Super Sport. So these are more sporty everyday. They definitely still have the Ducati heritage in the styling and the sportiness in their nature, but a bit more practical for everyday riding. Over on our left-hand side tonight, we've got the Diavel and the Diavel. So V2 and V4 engine configurations again. I was very lucky a couple of weeks ago to ride the Diavel V4 around the South Island of New Zealand, and that was my first time riding a Diavel, and it was super impressive. The V4 Gran Turismo engine has such a smooth, slick gearbox on it, but that bike really does set the impression wherever you go. It's quite a distinctive look. With the muscle cruiser look that it's got going on. Over in the back right hand corner, we've got the Monster 950 SP here tonight. The engine is the LTR 937 Testosterone engine, shared with the Desert X now. And this is fun. A lot of good fun on the nice lightweight but nimble Monster naked bikes. Over in the back left hand corner, we've got the Scrambler Icon on display here tonight, the yellow Icon model. The Scrambler has been around the Ducati family for quite a while now, but they've updated now with a new generation of Scrambler. They're lighter, they've got more sophisticated electronics on there with cornering ABS and TFT displays, but they still keep that iconic Scrambler heritage look. Next up, we've got the Hypermotard range. So we've got a 950 SP Hypermotard here tonight, and in a little while you're going to see the new single-cylinder Hypermotard as well. Hypermotards are a lot of fun. Again, they're stripped down naked bikes, but with that big upright stance and nice wide handlebars for supermoto style riding. And good chance you'll lose your license if you get one of those bikes. The Multistrada family, Sergi touched on it. It's a very important family in the model lineup for Ducati, and there's now 8 models in the Multistrada lineup in 2024, and you're about to see 2 new ones tonight. Powered by the V4 or the V2 engines, and they are packed with technology to help adapt the bike to the different riding conditions, to the multi-roads that we do. One of my favourite features on these bikes is the adaptive radar cruise control, which we'll cover in a little while. So really with the Multistradas now, it's a question of which Multistrada are you, because you can really find one that fits your type of riding. Now the bike that's most near and dear to my heart, the Desert X here in the middle, we're about to unveil the Desert X Rally tonight, and certainly that bike got the biggest applause last week in Melbourne. It's Ducati's first proper off-road bike in many, many years, with a 21-inch front wheel, an 18-inch rear, and the Desert X Rally really steps it up a notch further. But we've also got the R22 colour scheme, Desert X OG as I like to call it, over in the corner here tonight. So you'll be able to compare those bikes later on and see where they've made some upgrades. Alright, without further ado, I want to jump into these 4 bikes that we've got here with us on display here tonight. So I think we might start off with the Multistrada V4 RS, and I'll get Davide to come and give me a hand. And we're going to pull the cloak off this bike so you can take it in all its glory. How's that look? So the Ducati Multistrada V4 RS, super exciting. This is the most exclusive and sporty Multistrada yet. We've gone back to a 17-inch front wheel, which traditionally Multistrada's had for a long time. But one of the big party tricks with this bike is the engine. It's not the V4 Gran Turismo engine, it's the V4 Desmo Sedici Stradale engine from the Panigale. So it ups the power output, and certainly the sporty character of the bike is taking a big step up. Also, you can see with the looks of the bike, we've got carbon fibre parts all over the bike to help bring that weight down. So let's dive in a little bit deeper with the specs on the bike. Starting off with the wheels, I mentioned it's a 17-inch front wheel now, 17-inch rear as well. They are forged Marchesini aluminium wheels on there, so super lightweight to really help with nimble handling and change of direction. Braking department, we've got Brembo Stylema calipers there in a nice red accent with 330mm front disc brakes and a stronger master cylinder for the rear brake to really assist with braking. And this bike features really sophisticated ABS electronics, which we'll dive into a little bit more in a minute. Those wheels are 2.7 kilograms lighter than the Multistrada wheels, so they've done a great job there with keeping that weight down. It's a 120 wide front tyre with a 190 wide rear tyre, so it's getting quite a bit beefier at the back end. One of the other exciting features on this bike, it's got the electronically controlled suspension, but it is a step above with the compared to the Multistrada V4 RS. It's Öhlins EC2 electronic suspension on this model, which has event-based damping control. So basically the bike is constantly monitoring what the suspension is doing and will adjust the damping accordingly to suit your riding style or conditions at that time. It's got wheel travel 170mm front and rear, and we've got a lot of control through the dash in adjusting the suspension preload and damping settings on the fly. On the back end of the bike, we've got a single-sided swing arm, which has been quite traditional for Ducatis for many years, so that brings it a bit more of that sporty nature with the RS. On the back end of the bike, if you have a close look later on, we've now got a titanium subframe on the back end of the bike, again for weight reduction, but also it's a little bit of bling there, but we do save about 2.5 kilograms of weight just with that titanium subframe. There's also some upgraded heat protectors there underneath the seat made of carbon fibre to help keep the rider a bit more comfortable. Coming into the engine, this is where the excitement is. So it's the 1103cc Desmo Sedici Stradale engine, as I mentioned, from the V4 Panigale. Power output is up to 180 horsepower now. So it's a little bit less than the Panigale, but it's certainly a step up from the Multistrada V4 RS. And the red line is at 13,500 RPM. So that's going to be one of the key distinctive differences with this bike, and also the exhaust note is quite different with a different catalytic converter in the system there. There's also a dry clutch on the bike, which a lot of Desmo fans would be happy to hear about. So that traditional Ducati dry clutch for less power loss and also adjustable engine braking effect. There is rear cylinder deactivation on this model, like a lot of the Multistradas do, to reduce fuel consumption, but also reduce engine heat when you're stationary in traffic lights or at low speeds riding around town. If 180 horsepower is not enough for you, you can also bump that up to 195 horsepower by adding on the full race exhaust system from Aquapovic, and also, believe it or not, changing the engine oil. Changing the engine oil will get you another 2.5 horsepower through super lightweight oil. And also another point with that racing exhaust system, it lowers the weight by 5 kilograms, so that's pretty handy when you're talking on this bike too. Getting into the electronics, this is where the Multistradas really shine now with super sophisticated Bosch electronic systems. So there's 4 riding modes we've got available. We've got race, sport, urban and touring. In race mode, you get full 180 horsepower in every gear. But if we go to one of the other modes like touring or sport or urban, it reduces the power output in first, second and third gear, simply because you couldn't keep the front wheel on the ground if you did have full power there. In the different riding modes, we can adjust a lot of different characteristics with the bike, from engine output, so the maximum power, the throttle response, the level of traction control, the level of wheelie control, engine brake control. We can also turn the engine, the quick shift on or off. I don't know why you'd ever want to turn it off. And we can also control the some of the suspension settings, so the preload and the damping control of the suspension, and we can also adjust the ABS settings on the bike as well. The bike does feature cornering ABS, so as we dive into the corners, the bike knows we can't put as much braking effort into those tyres when we're cranked over, so it will reduce that braking pressure if we're in that kind of emergency braking situation. There's also real-time feedback on the dash. So say, for example, with the traction control, if you're hard on the gas and that traction control is active, you will get flashing lights on the screen telling you you're being an idiot and to maybe back it off a little bit. But the electronics are there to keep you safe. So some of the design features on the bike, I mentioned there's lots of carbon fibre parts on the front end of the bike here. We've also got smoked wind deflectors, carbon fibre handguards. There was an ad on Instagram recently. Some beautiful components on there that really lift the look of the bike. One of my favourite features is the rear ducktail. We've got some good passenger grab rails underneath here, but they've really tightened up the back end of the bike to make it look a lot more sporty. In terms of creature comforts, it is still quite a capable touring bike. One finger adjustment for the windscreen for one. On the back side of the 22 litre fuel tank, we do have a smartphone compartment there, which is air cooled to keep your phone nice and cool while you're riding. And there's also a USB charging port there, and that will sync wirelessly to the dash of the bike to give you full map on-screen navigation on the TFT display. And that TFT display is 6.5 inches in size, so it's quite a large display, and we can control a lot of features on the bike through that dash. One of my favourite features on the Multistrada range has got to be the radar active cruise control. So we've got a pair of radar sensors, one on the front, one on the back. The rear radar sensor brings into play the blind spot detection system, which is a pair of orange LEDs on the back side of the mirrors. But the front radar is obviously detecting the distance, the braking distance to the vehicle in front. And when you've got the cruise control set, that will maintain that braking distance for you, however you've got it set. And the way that system's been implemented on the Multistrada range is just absolutely flawless. It works everywhere it should and doesn't do anything that it shouldn't do. Really, really good implementation. A couple of other things with the ergonomics on the bike. The handlebars are now direct mounted, so it gives you more direct feedback and feel, more sporty sort of feel to the bike, and the shape of the handlebars are a little bit lower and a little bit kind of more swept back for more sporty seating position. And also the foot pegs are a touch higher as well and a little bit further back to allow greater lean angles. Fuel tank capacity I mentioned is 22 litres, and the weight reduction on this bike is around 3 kilograms lighter than the Pikes Peak, which used to be one of my favourite sporty Multistrada models, but I think for now it's got to be this. This one definitely takes the cake. So what do you think of the RS? Pretty sexy looking? Okay, next up, we've got another bike hiding over here. Let's have a look what's under that with our quick brand video. So we present for you now the Multistrada V4 RS Grand Tour. Look at that. Bit of a mouthful, but it is certainly a stunning looking bike. So it's finished in the sandstone grey metallic with a lot of red accents on there. It definitely adds a degree of sophistication to the Multistrada V4 S with a few blacked out components on the bike too. If you have a close look later on, it's got a blacked out swing arm, handlebars, triple clamps on the bike, really add a new higher degree of sophistication, I would say. So this bike's all about pure touring pleasure. They've really put a lot of effort into more comfort for both the rider and the passenger, and they've added a lot of features on the bike that better suit long distance touring. So let's dive into some of the key features. So the wheels, we've got a 19-inch front wheel as opposed to the 17-inch on the RS. It is still a 17-inch wheel at the back. They're cast alloy wheels, and they now feature tyre pressure monitoring system as standard. So you'll get a readout on the dash of the tyre pressures as you're riding along. Tyre size is 120 wide on the front, 170 wide at the rear, so a little bit smaller than the RS. But definitely the 19-inch front wheel will make it a little bit more comfortable for those potholey roads that we tend to get in Australia. Brakes. Very similar components. The Stylema Brembo calipers are radially mounted on the front forks to give really precise feel and feedback, and certainly plenty of power. 330mm front disc rotors, and same sort of Brembo system tied in at the back. And they're both linked again with the Bosch cornering ABS system with 3 levels of ABS settings that we can select there. One of the other party tricks with this bike with the braking system is it has vehicle hold control. So basically it's got a parking brake. If we do a firm press on either the front brake lever or the rear brake lever, it will activate the brakes and hold the brakes on for you while you say you're stationary at a set of traffic lights or at a hill. It'll hold those brakes for 3 minutes, or if you do a double pump on the lever, it'll deactivate those brakes. Or as you release the clutch and ride away, the brakes will gradually decrease their pressure so you can pull away smoothly with your feet comfortably on the ground. So that's a really nice little party trick. There is one other party trick this bike features, which is what they call the minimum preload function. So with the electronically controlled suspension on this bike, if we press and hold the suspension preload button here on the switch block for 3 seconds, it'll take all of the preload out of the rear shock to lower the seat height to the minimum. So that's really handy if you're maybe pushing the bike backwards into a car park, or when your pillion passenger wants to get on the bike. We can also adjust the suspension preload as we're riding along, and we've got auto levelling suspension on there as well, so we can dial in the right amount of preload to suit the weight that we're carrying on the bike. Also with that electronic suspension, we can adjust the damping between soft and firm settings, again to suit the roads and the riding conditions we're in. Maybe we want to firm it up if we're doing a bit more sort of sporty, twisty riding. 170mm travel front and rear. The engine on this bike is powered by the V4 Gran Turismo engine, so similar with the rally model that we have here tonight, and also the Pikes Peak. Puts out 170 horsepower. And again, we've got 4 riding modes available on this bike, with Sport, Touring, Urban and Wet, or Enduro I should say, not Wet. This bike does get into an Enduro mode, which allows you to do a little bit of off-road riding and changes some of the features like deactivates wheelie control and also deactivates the rear ABS for off-road riding. Again, in those 4 riding modes, it will change features like the power output, the traction control levels, anti-wheelie, the ABS, and the electronic suspension, as I mentioned. Ergonomics, as I said, has been a big part with this bike. So the rear passenger's got a little bit more room at the back here for comfort. Both the rider and passenger seats are heated. The pillion passengers have got their own switch at the front of the seat there. The rider seat is also height adjustable by 20mm, and we can lower and raise its suspension, as I mentioned as well. It also features rear cylinder deactivation, again for fuel economy, but also for that engine heat soak when we're stationary lights. Another thing to help manage the heat on the bike is the side-mounted radiators will exhaust a lot of their hot air out past the rider's leg, but then we also have a pair of air deflectors or conveyors down low that scoop nice, cool, fresh air up past the rider and passenger's legs, and we can close those vents off as well for cold riding conditions. A few other creature comforts on the bike. Again, there's a smartphone pocket on the back side of the fuel tank, which is air-cooled. The tyre pressure monitoring system that I mentioned. We've got the daytime LED running lights here, and we've also got cornering LED lights as well. So as the bike cranks into a corner, extra lights will illuminate its way around the corner. The 6.5-inch TFT display, and again, 1-finger adjustment on the windscreen. And there's also a centre stand fitted as standard for easy maintenance of the bike when you're out on the road, and it also comes fitted standard with the plastic panniers as well. And I should mention these panniers are a floating system on the bike to help get some good stability when you're at high speeds out on the road. The wet weight on this bike, fueled, ready to go, is 254 kilograms, and that's including the panniers. So they've done a really nice job of setting this bike up for sporty touring riding. So that's the V4 Grand Tour. All right, this one I'm a little bit excited about. Let's play the video.
So this is Atlas Mountain, you know, more or less.
Yeah.
So we cross one time and now we turn on the small valley, very tricky. we can go up of the small village, so I don't know if we can arrive to be there. Tomorrow we go down direction Marrakesh by the big canyon.
Yeah.
So it will be very tricky and I think a lot of water.
And wet. Yeah.
Wet.
Yeah.
So we need to go fast because it's still a long day tomorrow.
Let's put them out of their misery. Let's pull it off, David. Jeez. There we go, the new Desert X Rally. Cuts a fine shape sitting there. So straight away you can see it's definitely a more off-road focused version of the Desert X that was released a couple of years ago. So straight away that high mount front guard really sets itself apart, and you can see the trick suspension components on there. And certainly that's the standout feature on this new Desert X Rally. The front forks in particular, made by Kayaba, really set it apart. So let's get into a little bit more detail. First of all, with the wheels down low, we've now got stronger and narrower off-road wheels set on this bike. They are tube type wheels, and the rim width's quite a lot narrower, so it allows us to fit more aggressive off-road orientated aggressive knobby tyres on there, if you like. It comes fitted down with the Pirelli STR tyres you can see there, but certainly you've got a lot more choices now in terms of the tyres that we can fit to the bike to match the off-road performance. It's also got billet aluminium machined hubs, which certainly give you a lot more sort of confidence, I guess, when you're hitting things hard off-road. Braking system on the front is basically the same as the Desert X, with those really excellent quality Brembo style led calipers, essentially the same as what you have on the Multistrada models. There's no problem on the braking before, and you certainly won't experience with the Desert X Rally. So coming up to the suspension, this is where things get really tricky. So we've got Kayaba closed cartridge forks on this bike. So essentially these forks are motocross or enduro spec components, and it's actually the first time this type of fork from Kayaba has been used on a road legal motorcycle. Ducati really had to push Kayaba hard to get access to fit these suspension to this motorcycle, and they certainly worked really closely with them to dial in the settings as well. So they're a larger diameter inner fork tube, 48mm, which is 2mm up on the original Desert X. Suspension travel is also increased, 20mm up to 250mm travel. And I mentioned the closed cartridge system, which makes the damping more consistent over rough terrain, and as things get hotter, that damping will stay more consistent for a long time. Other things that help with that, we've got a Kashima coating on the outside of the fork legs here, and a DLC coating on the inner tubes, to improve durability and also reduce stiction on the forks. The back end of the bike also gets an upgrade there with a larger diameter 36mm piston in the rear shock, a little bit more suspension travel, and a remote reservoir for the preload and the damping on the shock there. So the shock equally matches those forks without a problem. They've also beefed up the triple clamps on the bike, so they're now machined aluminium triple clamps, and they're quite a bit stronger to give a more just kind of direct feel with the suspension. They've also upgraded the steering damper on the back end of the bike here, which is an adjustable Öhlins damper now, as opposed to the unit on the previous model. Ground clearance is greatly increased as well. It's up to 220mm now. You might notice on the underside of the bike, it's got carbon fibre there as well with a forged carbon sump guard on the lower part of the bike. So it really improves the durability of the bike, even though we've lifted up off the ground a little bit more. As far as the engine goes, essentially it's the same as the original Desert X, the 937cc Testostrata L-twin engine with that front cylinder pretty much laid horizontal. We've got 6 riding modes in there, so sport, touring, urban and wet, and then we've got 2 off-road modes of rally and enduro. So essentially that's the only change with the engine configuration on the rally model, is they slightly tweaked the rally traction control settings to suit the tyres and suspension on this bike. Other than that, it's essentially the same. So in those 6 riding modes, again, we can adjust traction control, engine brake control, wheelie control, quick shift, and also the cornering ABS. And one of the other features with the Desert X models, we can also turn the ABS off completely with a dedicated switch up there on the handlebars. But frankly, I've never felt the need to do that. The ABS system works beautifully. The air intake's nice and high, about 1 metre off the ground here, underneath the 21 litre fuel tank. So it certainly breathes nice, fresh, cool air up the front there. The bike comes standard with the nav mount tower up above the TFT display, so we can bolt our GPS straight up on there. It also comes standard with the one-piece rally seat, which makes it a lot easier for the rider to move forwards and backwards on the bike. It does increase the seat height about 20mm roughly. I'm not super tall, I'm 178 centimetres with kind of shorter legs, and I can handle the seat height on this bike without a problem. So to give you some idea there, you'll be able to have a sit on it later on as well for yourself. It's also got a red subframe now, just to distinguish itself a little bit from the original Desert X. And you'll notice the plastics on the bike, they're kind of injection molded, or they're not painted like the original Desert X, and they've got much more durable graphics and decals on the bike there to really suit the off-road riding style. One of the cool features too is the rear foot brake and gear lever now machined aluminium pieces with folding tips. And we can also adjust the height of that rear brake lever with a simple twist of the wrist, basically. So those lower foot levers are definitely a lot stronger and more durable for off-road riding. Weight-wise, the bike, fully fueled, wet, 225 kilograms. So they've done a really good job of keeping that weight nice and low, and it puts out 110 horsepower if you go in the high power modes. So that's it, the new Desert X Rally. What do you think of that one? Certainly excited to see what we can do with this bike here in Australia this year. It's really well suited to our conditions and is going to be a big step up in the off-road riding. That preview video was shot in Morocco, and I was very fortunate to ride this bike at the press launch there in January. And I can tell you the conditions there are very similar to Australia, so it's going to be well suited to over here. Okay, next up, something very special hiding under the cloak here. Let's take a look on the screen.
Riding means a lot of things, right? Riding means to challenge yourself. Riding means finding total control too.
To me, riding means looking for emotions, to seek them anytime, anywhere, to go and get them.
Riding means devoting your mind and your body, curve after curve, slide after slide, to get it wrong even, why not? To get back on track.
What I feel? Well, I feel the freedom to be driving my own existence, to weigh all the options, to run them one by one.
It's thinking about the here and now, not what will come. There's just no time for what will come.
It's a bit like meditation, but with bated breath.
Sometimes I feel like I'm going super fast, taking a million decisions every minute. At other times, I feel like I'm taking so many that I'm not actually taking any.
I made a promise to myself, never stop feeling free. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I ride to feel light as a feather.
Sometimes to feel tough, swift, sexy, one of a kind.
Every single day, I want to dare new ways, new roads. I feel like choking on adrenaline.
I laugh, I cry out for something, for anything.
Every day, I feel like I've never felt before.
Every day, I try to run as fast as I can towards myself. That's what riding feels like.
Ooh, this is exciting. We present for you the Hypermotard 698 Super Quattro Mono. Mono is the active word too, I think. So this is exciting. This is the first time in a long time. It's been a minute since Ducati had a single cylinder engine in their lineup. Sergi touched on it earlier. The Super Mono was the last single cylinder bike from the Ducati family, which was around about 30 years ago now, 93 to 95. We had the Super Mono on the lineup, and now we've got the Super Quattro engine in this bike. The Super Quattro engine is essentially born from the Panigale. They took the V2 Panigale engine and essentially cut it in half and gave us the same cylinder head and piston and a few performance components from the Panigale range. So it makes it the highest revving and most powerful single cylinder engine on the market. Super exciting stuff. Alright, let's get into a few more details. 17-inch wheels, front and rear. This bike's all about super motard style riding, which is all about wheelies, skids and going sideways into the corners. So 17-inch cast alloy wheels, front and rear, make for some super nimble handling on nice tight tracks or roads. They are cast alloy Y-spoke type wheels, and you can see really bright bold red tags on the wheels to help them stand out. It is a single disc on the front to help with that nimble handling feeling, but they are Brembo brakes front and rear as well. The rear Brembo brake is quite strong. Your riding style with Super Motard is all about backing it into the corners, so we definitely want good control over the rear brake there. 17-inch tyres, the Pirelli Diavel Rosso tyres, so we've got a 120 wide at the front and a 160 wide at the rear, so that helps to tame the power and put it where it's best needed, best put to use, I could say. The braking system on this bike is really sophisticated. I'm going to dive into that more in a minute when it comes to the electronics. Suspension-wise, we've got a Mazzocchi fork up the front, 45mm diameter with 215mm of suspension travel and a little bit more travel at the rear, 240mm travel from the Sachs shock at the rear of the bike. And there is also a linkage underneath the aluminium swing arm there. It's a dual arm swing arm, nice and light. I think it only weighs 2.7 kilograms or something crazy like that. So they've done a really good job of keeping the bike nice and light. It does have the traditional style steel trellis frame, both in terms of the subframe and the main frame on the bike. There's a 12-litre fuel tank hiding in there, quite central on the bike, and that was something Ducati put a lot of work into, making the handling of the bike very Ducati-like, so very planted and stable, with a little bit more front-end bias compared to a typical Super Motard bike. So they really worked on that handling to make it feel planted. The seat's nice and flat and really long, so we can really shift our body weight either forward as we're approaching the corners or get our body weight back as we drive out. For those of you that are a little bit short of leg, it is 904mm high, so you might struggle there a little bit, but it is nice and narrow between your legs. So a really good seating position with those big wide handlebars for supermoto style riding. The foot pegs are nice and high too to get some good lean angles. And you can add passenger foot pegs on there. They come standard with the bike. So if you really want to scare your neighbour, pop passenger foot pegs on and go for a ride. All right, let's get into the engine in a bit more detail. So I mentioned it's the Super Quattro Mono, which is the first time we've had a single cylinder engine for 30 odd years. They've basically taken the 1299 Panigale engine, as I said, more or less sort of cut it in half. It's essentially the same cylinder head, piston, desmodromic valve train, and a few other bits and pieces in there straight from the Panigale. The rev limit is at 10,250 RPM, which is quite high for a single cylinder engine and will really scream around those go-kart tracks. It's actually 659cc and puts out 77.5 horsepower, and that 0.5 horsepower I think is important. You can up that to 84.5 horsepower by changing the exhaust system and also a couple of mods with the air intake on the bike. If you swap out to the Termignoni exhaust system, you also get a weight reduction of up 1.5 kilograms as well, which again with this bike weight does make a bit of difference. This bike, fully fueled, ready to go, tips the scales at about 160 kilograms. And certainly when you're pushing and wheeling the bike around, you do notice that lightweight. It feels great. So diving into the engine a little bit more, it's a 116mm diameter piston. So for those of you that are familiar with some of that technology, it's a really over-square type of engine configuration, and it doesn't have a cylinder as such. The cylinder liner is aluminium and it's pressed straight into the crankcases, and the cylinder head bolts straight onto those crankcases. So it's quite a sophisticated engine. It does have a slipper clutch there, so for those aggressive downshifts as you're coming into a tight corner, the engine will help control that engine braking as you're coming into the corner. It's got magnesium covers on both the clutch, the alternator and the cylinder head covers as well, so for lightweight and also those for curb hooks. Now, getting into the electronics on this bike, even though it's quite a simple bike in terms of its appearance, it is super sophisticated. So we have a 6-axis IMU underneath the seat, which is measuring all the lean angles, acceleration, things like that, and that's feeding information to the computer. We've got 4 riding modes on this model: Sport, Road, Urban and Wet. Where the party tricks come in on this one is when we get into the braking. So the braking system on this bike now has 4 levels of ABS and what they call slide-by-brake. So as I mentioned, with Supermotard style riding, it's all about getting sideways into the corners, and with a slide-by-brake system we can judge or change the amount of step out you'll get at the back end of the bike, depending on how aggressive you get with those brakes. We can also change 3 power levels, traction control, the anti-wheelie control, and it also has essentially an anti-flip function, dare I say it. If you go down to level 1, which is designed to be for pro-level riders, it essentially has almost an anti-flip function in there. You really do need to read up about the electronics on this bike because they are super sophisticated. We've got a very compact LCD dash right behind the headlight here. There's an LED headlight with kind of a dual C configuration. And there is 2 models available. The one we're presenting to here tonight is the RVE version, which features quick shift as standard, or you can get the base red coloured model and add that quick shift on as an option if you'd like. And I mentioned the weight, wet weight, 160 kilograms. So that's the Hypermotard 698 mono. Bit of a mouthful, but it's going to be a lot of fun to ride. What do you think of that one? Alright, so that's basically it for our 2024 model lineup, but we do have some other features or a bit of an apparel range that we want to take you through tonight.